This isn't just a title fight, it's a collision of two completely different worlds, and one of them is walking straight into the perfect trap. The master plan has been laid out by the UFC's new undefeated king, Ilia Topuria, and the target is the sport's most charismatic superstar, Paddy Pimblett. Get ready, because we're about to break down every single detail of this stylistic nightmare and reveal why one brutal outcome is simply inevitable.
To truly understand the threat that is coming, you have to go back to UFC 317. It was a night that was supposed to be a coronation, but for a different man. Charles Oliveira, the beloved submission wizard, the man who held the record for the most finishes in UFC history, was defending his lightweight throne. He was the established king, a legend defined by his ability to walk through fire and drag his opponents into the deepest waters imaginable. And into this lion's den walked Ilia Topuria, the undefeated featherweight champion, a man many saw as supremely skilled, but perhaps biting off more than he could chew by moving up in weight. The questions were everywhere. Could his power translate against bigger men? Could he possibly survive on the ground with a submission artist as deadly as Oliveira? In the minds of many, this was a classic too much, too soon scenario. What happened next wasn't just a victory, it was a statement that silenced every single doubter in the most brutal way imaginable. For 2 minutes, the fight was a tense chess match. We saw a brief glimpse of Oliveira's world on the mat, a moment where the entire arena held its breath, but Topuria navigated it with a calm that was almost unnerving. He wasn't panicked, he was patient. He got back to his feet, and that's when the prophecy he had laid out for himself was fulfilled. He didn't rush, he didn't brawl, he waited, calculated, and then unleashed a sequence of strikes so precise and so devastating it felt like it was pulled from a training manual for assassins. A perfect right hand found its mark, followed by a left hook that detonated on Oliveira's chin, sending the legend collapsing to the canvas. There was no follow-up needed. It was over. As the referee waved off the fight, Topuria stood in the center of the octagon, not with the wild joy of a challenger who had just shocked the world, but with the cold, imposing demeanor of a king who was simply collecting what was already his. This wasn't a surprise to him, it was an inevitability. And as he stood there, two belts draped over his shoulders, he turned his attention from the fallen legend at his feet to the future. He grabbed the microphone, and his words weren't a celebration, they were a declaration of war. He put the entire division on notice, but the venom, the true target of his decree, was aimed directly at one man. This call-out, coming from an undefeated two-division champion, fresh off a legendary knockout, was no longer a hypothetical, it was a summons. But while one king was claiming his second throne, another was watching from across the ocean, convinced his own destiny was about to be fulfilled.
But for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. While Ilia Topuria represents a cold, silent storm of calculated violence, the force gathering on the other side of the world is something else entirely. It's a loud, vibrant, and chaotic hurricane of charisma and self-belief named Paddy Pimblett. Paddy didn't just join the UFC, he kicked the front door down, and his arrival was less of a debut and more of a cultural takeover. With his trademark haircut, his unfiltered Liverpool wit, and a personality that is impossible to ignore, he became an instant superstar. His connection with the fans is magnetic. They don't just watch him fight, they feel like they are a part of his journey, a part of the movement. He's built an army that follows him everywhere, and in the modern UFC, that kind of star power is a weapon in itself. From his early days dominating Cage Warriors, Paddy's destiny felt pre-written. People saw the potential not just for a champion, but for a global icon. His fighting style, while sometimes defensively questionable, is pure excitement. He's willing to walk through his opponent's fire just to land his own devastating shots, a style that guarantees thrilling fights and keeps viewers glued to their screens. He speaks his success into existence with a level of self-assurance that borders on prophetic. In his mind, the UFC title isn't a dream, it's an appointment he's been waiting to keep. And so, as he watched Topuria dismantle a legend like Oliveira, he wasn't seeing an unbeatable monster, he was seeing the ultimate opportunity. For Paddy, Topuria's victory didn't create fear. It created a bigger stage. Defeating a champion is how you win a belt, but defeating an undefeated two-division champion who is being hailed as the next pound-for-pound king, that's how you become a god in the sport overnight. It's the ultimate validation, the final chapter in the story he's been telling the world for years. He sees past the aura of invincibility. He sees the hand sanitizer boy he's had beef with for years. The personal animosity between them removes any chance of intimidation. In Paddy's world, Topuria isn't a legend in the making. He's just the final boss in a video game that Paddy has every intention of beating. With two larger-than-life characters on a collision course, the question becomes a simple one. What actually happens when the cage door closes? What happens when pure chaotic energy meets cold, calculated precision?
When you break this potential war down to its core elements, you begin with the most glaring and fascinating contrast, the stand-up game. This is where the fight presents a fundamental clash of philosophies, a violent debate between raw, chaotic aggression and sublime, technical perfection. On one side, you have Ilia Topuria, a striker who seems less like a fighter and more like a scientist of destruction. His boxing is a work of art, built on a foundation of flawless fundamentals. His jab isn't just a tool to measure distance, it's a piercing weapon that sets up everything else in his arsenal. His head movement is economical, his footwork is always in the perfect position, and there is absolutely zero wasted motion. Every feint, every slip, and every punch is designed for maximum efficiency, a straight line from his mind to his opponent's chin. We saw the terrifying culmination of this process against Charles Oliveira. The final sequence wasn't a lucky punch, it was a surgical execution born from patience and observation. Topuria downloaded the data he needed, saw the opening that would inevitably appear, and fired his weapons with the precision of a sniper. That is his genius. He doesn't engage in brawls, he lures his opponents into carefully laid traps. Against elite strikers like Alexander Volkanovski and Max Holloway, he proved this method isn't just effective, it's practically unbeatable. He stands in the pocket, sees every shot coming, and delivers fight-ending counters with a composure that is simply chilling. He is a master of turning his opponent's offense against them. Then, on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, you have Paddy Pimblett. If Topuria is a scalpel, Paddy is a whirlwind of flailing sledgehammers. His striking is unorthodox, unpredictable, and fueled by relentless forward pressure. He throws from awkward angles, chains together wild combinations of punches and kicks, and is more than happy to absorb a punch to give one back. His greatest strength is his ability to create chaos, to turn a technical kickboxing match into a messy, scrappy dogfight where rhythm is broken and game plans are thrown out the window. He relies on his toughness, his cardio, and his sheer volume to overwhelm and drown his opponents. The problem? This high-risk, high-reward style means his chin is often left exposed. He has been rocked in fights before, and while his recovery has been remarkable, it begs a terrifying question. What happens when that exposed chin meets the sniper rifle of a power puncher as precise and deadly as Ilia Topuria?
For any opponent facing Paddy Pimblett, the game plan seems deceptively simple on paper. Survive the chaos on the feet, because his true danger, his ace in the hole, lies on the ground. The canvas is his world. It's where he transforms from a wild brawler into a cunning and opportunistic predator. Paddy isn't a traditional wrestler who grinds out decisions with positional control. Instead, he's a master of the scramble, a submission hunter who thrives in the messy, transitional moments of a fight. He has an uncanny ability to find an opponent's back in the blink of an eye, and once he's in position, his rear naked choke is one of the most feared weapons in the division. He's creative, fluid, and relentlessly aggressive in his pursuit of a finish on the mat. For many of his past opponents, allowing the fight to hit the floor was the beginning of the end. It was the moment their game plan crumbled and they entered his element. But Ilia Topuria is not like his past opponents. The most overlooked and perhaps most dangerous part of Topuria's entire game is his grappling. While fans and pundits are mesmerized by his knockout power, they often forget that he is built on a foundation of elite world-class wrestling. His Greco-Roman base gives him incredible strength in the clinch and a suffocating top game that has been described as being trapped under wet concrete. He doesn't just hold his opponents down, he immobilizes them, drains their cardio, and crushes their will, all while being a constant threat with his own ground and pound. For years, this was a theoretical strength against the highest level of competition. Then came the Charles Oliveira fight. This is the single piece of evidence that changes everything. Topuria willingly engaged on the ground with the most prolific submission artist the UFC has ever seen. He entered the Shark Tank with a great white fight and was never in a moment of real danger. He didn't just survive, he controlled the exchanges and dictated where the fight took place. This fact poses a devastating question for Team Pimblett. If Charles Oliveira, a jiu-jitsu master, couldn't implement his game, how does Paddy expect to get the fight into his world? The path to victory for the baddie seems to require a takedown, but he would be trying to take down a man who is stronger, more technical in the wrestling department, and just proved his submission defense is virtually impenetrable. In fact, the more terrifying thought is that Topuria might choose to take Paddy down to beat him in his own domain just to make a statement.
When two fighters possess such a high level of skill, the physical battle often becomes a stalemate. The fight then moves to a different arena, the 6 inches of space between the ears. This is where wars are truly won or lost, where iron wills are pitted against each other, and where the slightest crack in a fighter's self-belief can lead to a catastrophic failure. The psychological dimension of this matchup is just as compelling as the physical one, presenting a fascinating study in 2 completely different types of confidence. On one side, you have the unshakable certainty of a prophet, and on the other, the defiant, unwavering faith of a people's champion. Ilia Topuria's confidence is a terrifying thing to behold. It isn't arrogance, it's a state of absolute certainty. He speaks about his future victories not as possibilities, but as pre-written facts. He predicted the exact manner in which he would dismantle champions like Alexander Volkanovski and Charles Oliveira, and then entered the octagon and made those predictions come true with chilling precision. This has created an aura of a man who is living in the future, a man who is simply playing out a script that he has already read. His composure is inhuman. Whether he's walking out to the cage or standing over a fallen opponent, his expression barely changes. It is the cold, emotionless focus of a man completing a task. This mindset, now reinforced by 2 UFC belts and a string of legendary knockouts, has built a fortress of invincibility around him. He doesn't just think he's the best, he has the receipts to prove it, and he carries that knowledge into the cage as his primary weapon. Paddy Pimblett's confidence, however, is a completely different kind of energy. It's not cold and calculated. It's a loud, infectious, and almost delusional self-belief that is magnified by the energy he draws from his millions of fans. Where Topuria's confidence is internal, Paddy's is external, a defiant roar against anyone who doubts him. His weapon is disrespect. He refuses to be intimidated by legacies or undefeated records. By boiling Topuria down to the hand sanitizer boy, he mentally shrinks his opponent down to a beatable foe, robbing him of his aura. He genuinely believes, with every fiber of his being, that he is the chosen one. Furthermore, he fights with the psychological freedom of the challenger. He isn't burdened by the immense pressure of an undefeated record. For Paddy, a loss is a lesson. For Topuria, a loss would be the shattering of a carefully constructed reality. The question is, whose mental fortress has the weaker foundation? Will Topuria's composure finally break when faced with a chaotic style he can't predict? Or will Paddy's loud self-belief finally go quiet when he feels a level of power and precision he has never experienced before?
So what truly fuels these incredible athletes? Beyond the physical gifts and the psychological fortitude, there lies a deeper, more primal motivation, the why that pushes them through grueling training camps and allows them to walk into a cage to face another man. For both Ilia Topuria and Paddy Pimblett, this fight represents far more than just a title. It's the ultimate culmination of their life's work, but their reasons for wanting it couldn't be more different. They are fueled by 2 opposing ends of the motivational spectrum, the defense of legacy versus the desperate pursuit of it. For Ilia Topuria, the motivation is about cementing his place in history. He is driven by a cold, calculated ambition to be recognized not just as a champion, but as one of the greatest martial artists to have ever lived. Every fight is another brick in the monument he is building to his own perfection. Defeating Paddy Pimblett, a fighter who represents charisma and popularity over pure technical skill in his eyes, would be the ultimate validation of his philosophy. It would be a statement that hype is temporary, but elite skill is eternal. Furthermore,
He carries the hopes of two nations, Georgia and Spain, on his back. His goal is to become a legendary figure for his people, a name that will be spoken with reverence for generations. He isn't just defending a belt, he is defending his argument that he is the perfect fighter, and he is fueled by the desire to leave no room for debate. Paddy Pimblett, on the other hand, is fueled by a burning, almost desperate hunger for respect. He is already a superstar with more fame and money than most fighters could ever dream of, but he knows that within the core of the sport, there is an asterisk next to his name. He is haunted by the whispers that he's a hype train, a can crusher, a fighter who has been protected from the division's elite. This fight is his one and only chance to silence those whispers forever. Beating Ilia Topuria, the undefeated two-division boogeyman, would provide him with the ultimate validation and instantly erase any and all doubt about his legitimacy. This is his opportunity to prove to the world and to himself that he truly belongs at the top. It's a deeply personal crusade, layered with years of bad blood and the dream of bringing a UFC title home to the people of Liverpool. His motivation is not the cold fire of a king defending his throne. It is the blazing inferno of a challenger trying to burn the whole kingdom down.
So there you have it. Two fighters, two completely different paths, two powerful motivations, all set on an inevitable collision course. On one side stands Ilia Topuria, the flawless technician, the undefeated two-division king, a champion defending his legacy with the cold precision of an assassin. On the other, Paddy Pimblett, the charismatic superstar, the people's champion, a challenger fueled by a chaotic style and a burning desire to earn his respect. We've broken down the striking, the grappling, and the psychological warfare from every angle. When all is said and done, the stark reality is that this matchup is, on paper, a stylistic nightmare for Paddy Pimblett. His entire game, the aggressive forward pressure, the defensive openings, the reliance on turning fights into brawls, plays directly into the hands of a counter-striking genius like Ilia Topuria. For that reason, our prediction has to be a decisive one. We see the champion making a terrifying statement. We predict a highlight reel knockout, likely early and likely initiated by Paddy's own aggression. It only takes one clean shot from a man with Topuria's power and precision, and we believe he will find it. But that is just our analysis. The beautiful, violent mathematics of this sport can be unpredictable, and a fighter with a heart and self-belief of Paddy the Baddy can never be completely counted out. So now we turn the question over to you. Do you agree with our prediction, or do you see the Scouser shocking the world? Drop your prediction in the comments below. We're reading every single one. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit that notifications bell so you don't miss any of our upcoming content. Smash that like button, and we'll see you in the next video.